1% of Hollywood productions are helmed by female directors.
Right, and that's even lower when you get to the top grossing films.
So the higher the budget,
Yes.
the lower chance of there being female director in there. How did you get involved with the project?
Well, the director, Amy Adrian, and the producer, David Harris, we all went to film school together at UCLA Film School. And, you know, these articles were being written about the dismal numbers. And, you know, we're all directors, cinematographers, filmmakers. And she felt that there was a story there and felt that it was the right time to tell this story and was having a lot of these conversations. So her and her producer partner, David Harris, made this investment in gear and got together our crew. We all started before we had any funding, which means we were working unpaid, but we were buddies. We always worked together. We get each other work all the time. So we all just really believed in it.
Did you learn something from that experience in terms of what they were saying, or the
Oh,
topic?
absolutely. I mean, one of the real joys of working on this project as a filmmaker is that it's a filmmaker's film. Every interview was a master class with these women directors that I admired.
Right.
Because of all the news right now, I think, of course, the film addresses gender parity, but it's also about the process of filmmaking and the creative process and the trajectory of these amazing careers and the challenges. So I think for all filmmakers, it's of interest. And for me, sitting with these women and hearing about their experiences and their vision was both incredibly inspiring and also somewhat depressing given how talented they were and how much they still had to struggle.
Well, which brings me to your topic, because I looked at your body of work. It's quite significant, and you're very good. And
Thank you.
I wonder, do you face discrimination, or do you know, is it obvious to you that you face discrimination as a female cinematographer?
You know, I'm part of the International Collective of Female Cinematographers. I was at their first meeting in Los Angeles, and the original kind of working title of our group was the 2%, because that's the representation of female DPs in the business. So of course we're aware of it, and we had a long discussion about how we want to talk about our group and what our mission is. We do our work regardless of whether we face discrimination or not. It's sort of a given, and you have to do your work anyway. So if you focus on the work, I think that's just what we do.
And looking at Half the Picture, which is this documentary, and the fact that you have done quite a few other documentaries before, but you've also done music videos, you've done commercials, narrative work. What turns you on? What do you like to do? What kind of stories do you like to tell?
I like human stories. I'm a humanist. I'm a feminist. My original passion was photojournalism. So I took photography classes in high school, and I traveled a lot. And as an undergrad, I spent some time in South America, and I photographed for La Nación, their national newspaper.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
that was my early passion, which led me to film school.
Sure.
And then I got into narrative film because I felt like I still love documentary, and obviously I'm here with a documentary. But in narrative, sometimes you can get at truth in a deeper way because you have control over the narrative. And also it was really hard for me to put a camera in people's faces sometimes. I think it's a personality thing. So I love both.
Well, speaking of your work, I looked through a number of your reels, clips, other work that you have. I found that you do have a style. My personal take was that you have a lot of color saturation and rich skin tones. Is this purposeful? Do you see the world in a very colorful way? Is that what you're translating onto the screen?
It's interesting when people tell you what they see in your work, because I think a lot of it just comes through you in an unconscious way. Certainly I do my job as a cinematographer in pre-production, and we talk about the look and have references. And I think I gravitate towards material that is emotive or sensitive, and maybe that's where color emerges from, the passionate emotional landscape of a character or of a story.
I noticed that there was no zoom ins, right? There was no movement of the lens. There was movement of camera. So do you gravitate more towards primes or zoom lenses? What do you like to use? Because I know in the doc world, you kind of sometimes have to use
Right.
Zooms.
I mean, in commercial work, I've worked with Zooms, some big Zooms, but in film Half the Picture, I was on a Zoom lens, but I don't think any of our Zoom shots are in it because it was more to have almost a third camera to alternate between a wide and a tight. So we had one camera on, a sort of medium close-up.
Sure.
And that was on a prime. And then I often was on the camera with the zoom lens, going from a wide to a tighter. And when you're working quickly in doc, I'm often on a zoom. I'm probably usually on a zoom, especially if I'm hand-holding and following a subject around.
Definitely. Now, for your narrative work, are you also operating for that as well?
I often do.
Yeah. Okay.
I like operating, especially when I'm handheld, because I feel the performance and it feels organic when I should push in closer or back off. And I appreciate being behind the camera for that in the world of the frame.
You like to have the camera on your shoulder?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I feel like it's just an extension of your eye. And I'm a very empathetic person, so I feel like I'm really good about feeling performance. And that's just a joy for me. It just feels very like a human thing.
How are you framing? How are you trying to portray your characters, in these projects, narrative or documentary? How are you trying to get that out of them? What are you doing? What are you looking for?
So I'm looking at everything. I mean, in terms of when I'm operating, I'm trying to frame this person in the place that the audience has most accessibility to them, but I am looking at the entire balance of the frame, and just balance composition.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, did you come from a film background? Like, did you shoot film when you first started and then get into digital? Yeah, you did. Okay, so tell me about that.
I might have been the last class at UCLA that was cutting our first projects on a flatbed. But we started on 16 millimeter film.
Sure. Bolex?
Bolex and ARRI. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm a film professor now, and so students are, none of them are shooting film, they're all shooting digitally.
Oh my God, that must be infuriating.
Well, you know what?
Long takes and stuff. And
there's a discipline that I appreciate having started on film.
Yes.
One, if you're funding your own films, that sound through the camera is just money. It's just you hear that money going through the camera. So you're really disciplined about not just letting the camera roll and being very specific about what the shot is before you roll. So I really value having started on film because of that discipline. One of the reasons why I love this business is that it just makes sense, and there's logic to why everyone has a role, and there's a protocol for that. And I find with digital, some of that is getting lost. And you don't have to go to film school to be a great filmmaker, but this is something we all learned in film school.
Yeah.
This is why I continue working with a lot of my film school friends, is because we know how things should go on set.
Now, do you find yourself, like, in lens choices, trying to find lenses they'll give you that's reminiscent of that film look? Do you use vintage glass, or do you go for the cleaner look? What do you try to do?
I always try to, when I'm reading a script, find the scene that really is the crucial moment or scene that communicates the story and the themes, and then I'll fight for the tools for that, and justify that, and then you just let go of some other things. So when it comes to lenses, you have to justify all of your tools. But I do think lenses are your strongest storytelling tools as a cinematographer, so I try to fight for a good lens package.
Yeah. Do you create looks? Like, are you creating LUTs for your cameras in the digital world and then going back into color, or how do you work? What's your system?
I have created LUTs and narrative work. We go into production with a pretty solid idea of our final look.
And it's great that you're taking that one step beyond by becoming a film professor, and then the new crop of students, then you're actually then taking your experiences and giving to them. Is that fulfilling for you? Like, did you really want to do that, or did you want to keep going with cinematography and always be shooting? Like, what made you start teaching?
Well, I always knew that when I went to film school, getting an MFA would enable me to teach, because it's kind of hammered into your head how difficult a film career can be. But I do enjoy it. I enjoy mentoring. I'm excited by seeing students' work and fresh voices, and nurturing those voices. And I mean, in this film, we talk a lot about storytelling, the importance of diversity behind the camera, in front of the camera, writers, to get stories out there. And I just feel like the younger you can get them, while their unique raw voice is, for lack of a better word, not corrupted yet.
Right.
And you have an opportunity as an educator to tell them your voice matters, your story matters, and nurture that. It's rewarding.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Very nice. Well, we're excited about your future and your work. We're excited about your film that you have at Sundance, and I hope that it keeps going beyond. I heard there's interest in it, so hopefully get distribution. But thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're fans, so we're happy to see you here and talking to us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.